Hello, Willowbrook family. Today's daily Devo is Proverbs chapter 3. Oftentimes, a child must deal with the fear of failure. Sometimes it's real and sometimes it's just perceived. But actually, dealing with the fear of failure extends well past our childhood years and into our adult years. This type of fear may follow us the rest of our lives. I remember when I was studying vocal performance in college, and it was very common to be nervous before a performance. In fact, I could be so nervous that I was afraid that I would walk out onto the stage and fall flat on my face. You see, you had nightmares about doing that. Well, my vocal professor told me something that I'll never forget. The reason you get nervous is because you are afraid of being judged in a bad light. And you overcome this fear by knowledge. And what he was saying was, be prepared. Fear is not necessarily conquered on the stage, but in the hours and hours you spend in rehearsal. As a believer, I knew that God was with me, but I also had to make sure that I had put in the time to be 100% prepared to be in front of an audience. Now, the first 9 chapters of Proverbs consists of 10 speeches from a father to a son. Proverbs 3 is one of those speeches. Now, this chapter is filled with wisdom, and most of it can stand alone and is self-explanatory. But there are so many verses in here that as I began to look at the chapter as a whole, I saw a verse that really stood out to me. It was verse 23. Then you will walk in your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. Now here, the father teaches his son to walk through life without falling flat on his face by taking the time to put the truths of chapter 3 into practice. The father opens his speech by reminding his child not to forget his teaching. The Hebrew word for teaching implies direction. In dealing with the fear of failure, most of the important things to learn as a child or as an adult is to make sure you don't forget the direction of God. You see, as you walk through life, God's direction is everything. Then the father teaches the son a list of truths and wisdom for his journey through his life. And first and foremost, in verse 1, you'll see, always keep God's commandments. Then later in verse 3, never let these 2 things leave you, kindness, which is good deeds, and truth, which is firmness and faithfulness. And then in verse 5 and 6, it says, boldly trust the Lord with everything you have. And don't try to figure out everything on your own. Listen to God's voice in everything you do and everywhere you go. Remember, God's direction, his will, his purpose, his ways is everything. Now, later in verse 9, the father tells the son, now as you travel through life, honor God with everything that you own. Always give him the first and the best. And these truths will really help you to not fall flat on your face. However, the wise father also knows that sometimes his son, like us, may have some setbacks on his journey. So in verse 11, he tells his son, do not reject God's discipline. Don't sulk under his loving correction. God provides his love for believers by correcting us. So, as you walk through God's direction, you will gain a special kind of wisdom that will be of great benefit to you. And then we get to that verse, verse 23. Then you will walk in your way securely, and your foot will not stumble. When you lie down, you will not be afraid. When you lie down, your sleep will be sweet. Do not be afraid of sudden fear, nor of the onslaught of the wicked when it comes. For the Lord will be your confidence and will keep your foot from being caught. So, when you walk out on the stage of your life and you're afraid that you're going to fall flat on your face, remember the knowledge, the wisdom, and the direction that comes from the Lord. And one last thing, and this is extremely important. Make sure you take the time to practice it. This wisdom will prepare you to live according to God's direction and not live in constant fear of falling flat on your face. Have a great day in the Lord, Willowbrook.